Hi, everybody. Hey, I hope people are having a good day today. I have been having a good day today. Bing! Whoops, okay, bing! There you go. All right, let's see. So, I've been getting the studio cleaned up. I'm going to be doing a studio tour soon because I've got a lot of changes that have really sort of been fine-tuned. I've done a number of different adjustments to the studio. I've actually cleared out a lot of books, and and I'm at the process now of getting everything finally just set up. I've got 3 workstations in the studio now. I've got little spaces for different things to happen. A lot of exciting stuff. Feeling good. It feels like just general improvement for my working conditions and the direction of where I'm going about doing things, and it's really helping me streamline my process and stuff like that. So I'm very excited. Okay, today's page. Let's do this before we get crack-a-lacking with a few more things. Today's page is the suggestion was Doctor Who Goes to Hogwarts. Married to a greatest. The studio's looking great. Hey, thanks very much. All right. I'm glad you're feeling that way. I took out 5.5 boxes of comics to out of the studio today, and 4 boxes of source books, because I figured that I find myself just looking visual. Just looking things up now, honestly, on a little tablet at my desk or my one desk, and my phone, and so a lot of these reference books it can be really good scrapbooks for folks. So I'm gonna take all those to Lee so the right people can get their hands on them. All right. Aside from that, just getting supplies organized and stuff like that is really beneficial. But it's been absolute chaos for a week. Okay. So, today's page is Doctor Who Goes to Hogwarts. I titled it The New Doctor Arrives. And I did this in mixed media on a paper that had been modified with brayer off and on top of some mixed media collage. Some different papers. You can see a musical note paper in there, and Post-it, and so on and so forth. That kind of shape. Just fun in the sun. Put a little framing element on the outside edges. Want to try that and see how that looks for me. I kind of like it, but feels kind of like wasted space. But yeah, really basic page, just a sort of introductory things for what it would be like for him arriving. Hence the title, The New Doctor Arrives. So. Yeah, it's a good feeling. I really enjoy doing mixed media stuff. The challenge, like I said before, is that working space makes it hard to leave material out, like mixed media stuff, so that I can just have it all accessible to work on it, or have it all arranged in such a way as I can figure out what I've got. So, we've got big improvements on that right now. So it's actually, everything is, I can see it from right where I am right now, in different shelving systems, and I'll show those this week. Hiya, Dee Dee, welcome aboard. Dee Dee saying hi to Lori. There we go. This was a fun page to do, and I only used half of this 11x17 sheet, so I've got that remainder of that page in order to work on something else. So very exciting. All right, I got TD says, "Oh, hi to you too, Christopher." Thanks, TD. So that's why I've been kind of hiding it. It's not so much that I'm hiding; it's just that the whole studio's been turned over, and tons of material going out, and all these books to be donated to a local rummage store so that people can find them for scrapbooking and things like that, and then we're going to be donating. I'm donating an entire long box of books to the Comic Jam participants so they can take home comics to read, and then there's just, busy in a tizzy. But I'm excited because I found a bunch of things that I thought I'd run out of, and in addition to that, I've got a fun little book haul. Now, I'll pull that stuff out and show you, and then we're going to get right into today's page. But let's get crack-a-lackin'. I'm going to go to the overhead. The first book I want to show you is, I got this as a gift, a birthday gift, a bunch of years back. This is the Acme Novelty Date Book, Volume 2. I've never seen the Volume 1. But this is Chris Ware. And it's his sketchbook. It's very thick, and it's got so much stuff in it. And for those that are familiar with Chris Ware's work, boy oh boy, he has got some really intricate drawings. And so his sketchbook, and then the look into a creator's journey exposes you to so much. And Didi says, I have his huge compendium, but I don't have this one. Yeah, I haven't seen this one since I got it, and there's just like here he is studying buildings. That's just great. Like that's the sort of stuff that if you want to figure out a way to become better at drawing something, then practice. However, the trip to China. These are his little sketches and notes as he traveled to China. This is all text. If you thought his books were complicated with tiny panels, woo, right? So, anyhow, there's just lots of great illustrations of his time there, and but when he does these little comic pages, wow, there's a lot in these small spaces. And yet, great stories. Lots of great story. But this is another one of those things where you can look at a person's sketchbook and spend a bit of time with it, because there's just so much in there. Like he's got the attendants at, I think, the airport, but then another tiny comic. Here's a house and a car, another tiny comic that just goes on. And here's his notes. Wow! So yeah, if you like reading and you like art, this one will do you. But it's from 1995 to 2002, and all of his sketch material that he did over that time. And wow, what a dense and really interesting thing. So if you're a fan of Chris Ware, if you're a fan of Acme Novelty Library, Billy Corrigan, the smartest kid on earth, any of his books, by all means, check these books out. The ISBN for this one is 976-1 897299-18-0. Yeah, this is a lovely book. I've been looking for it for a few weeks, and I found it on a shelf that it wasn't supposed to be on, and I completely didn't consider that it might be on. So I'm glad to be able to pull this out. Joshua Campbell is a big fan of this guy's work, so I just thought I'd bring that out to show. Now, another thing that I've been able to access, and I'm going to get this out of the way, but I'll be drawing on red cardstock today, folks. Another thing I've been able to access, I have a stack that's about this high. Whenever I was working at the store, and I would see a director's cut of a book. And what a director's cut means is it shows you the raw pencils, and it shows you the scripts that were written for this issue. And it also shows you what the finished one looks like. Now, that finished book has already come out. But in this case, the rough material that's, the core art, like those are really nice, tight, fine pencils. Really well done. X's, by the way, in pencils, when a penciler puts an X down in an area, that means fill it black. Hi, Susanna, welcome aboard. Fill it with black ink. That's So that means it just saves them having to make a smudgy page by filling in all the black areas themselves. So yeah, great stuff. But I would buy these whenever they came out, even if it's a thing that I'm not. Indeed, he says, I just looked, Christopher's Volume 3 will be out in October. Worth buying. By goodness, is it ever. Thank you for looking that up, Didi. And that's very interesting to me. Very, very interesting. This cost, back in the day, it cost $45. So I don't, I have to look at how much the new one is. Anyhow, this is a really interesting thing to be able to come across and to be able to acquire for things. And so every time one would come out, here's another director's cut. The new one is $49 in the USA. That makes it about $16,000 in Canada. So this new director's cut, okay, shows, here's the original art. Now there's two artists that work on the book, on this title. There was somebody that did these old flashback cartoony comic-y pages at the beginning. Sorry, I stopped moving this around so much. And thank you, though, Didi. I'll look into that for sure. And then the main pencils by Mitch Gerrits. This is his original art, and then he would do the colors would be added. But he would pencil and ink it himself. You can see the pencil crayon in there, as well as the ink. And I'm going to skip that page. So, but he also has done some fun things, like put masking tape in there. Why not? That's a great idea. I love that. I've been doing that for years. I love it. I love it. But you can see his original artwork here without the color applied to it. And then he's got a little paste up that he puts repetitively through the panels as a couple of characters are arguing in the foreground, rather than having to redraw the same thing over and over and over again. But I mean, look at the multiple perspectives of the same character and all the faces, the facial expressions he's making. So while it might look like a talking head type page, which Wood hated, he's got, wonderful facial expressions, which takes it away from just being your bland, terrible nightmare. So yeah, so anyhow, I really like Mitch Gerrits' work. This was a fun one to get a chance to look at his artwork. But then here's Tom King's script, and so this is great for if you're starting out and you're a fan of these kinds of books and you want to know, how do I get copies of scripts for me to practice with and for me to apply myself and see what I can do with that. This is a good way to do that. This, buying these director's cuts and getting the script for yourself to sit down and to try to take a crack at. It's the whole script, the whole book. Back panel, black panel, white writing, and it just says Dark Side Is. That's your one panel direction. Nothing out to draw there. Panel 7, Scott sitting down on the couch with his glass of milk. And then the dialogue. Good stuff. So this is yet another great example. Before I forget, Nate Powell. I've met Nate a number of times in Toronto. Okay, I haven't met the other two gentlemen, but March is about the 1,000-man march in Washington, D.C. in the United States about equal rights. And they keep winning some fantastic awards for this book series, but Nate illustrated. I'm a big fan of his work. I've got a few of his different books that I've shown here on the stream. I just wanted to show you. Look at that. They won yet another award for it, so that's lovely. Okay. Hi, Atori. Welcome on board. So others, this is another director's cut. It's the same thing. We got the script at the back. But this is Brian Hitch, another great penciler. This book, by the way, Ultimates, all of these Marvel movies that you see coming out started here. And the reason that they started here is that this book is where the artist was drawing Nick Fury as Sam Jackson. These stories, these books precede all of the Marvel movies. And this example is what was used when they created those films. Black Widow and Hawkeye being a partner, like a team, and Black Ops agents, and the development of all the different characters, and just fantastic stuff. All of it starts here. And this is the original artwork for this series, and you can just see Brian Hitch is an artist. I mean, look at the representation of that car. I'm gonna zoom in on that because it's really well done. Clickety click click. Barber truck. There we go. Look at that. Just the seam of the car. There he is, jumping in there and hitting a bunch of guys in the nose. And oh, look at him running around. And look at those city vistas. Look at that. Well done. Brian Hitch is the artist that did this one. So yeah, there's another great one. But this is, so all of these different things that I pick up. Here's another master, Alan Davis. I've shown sketchbooks of Alan Davis on the stream here. But this is a comic called The End. It's about a prospective future story of where these characters could go. But look at the tightness and yet at the same time the simplicity of these characters. Look at this panel. To show this explosion, he doesn't draw a lot of it. He leaves that space for the colorist to fill in those differences. Fantastic stuff, and look at that. There's another fantastic vista. Space station, all the space ships in the sky over the Earth. There's the moon. The moon's got all kinds of city business going on in that. Just wonderful work, and I really appreciate Alan Davis's work. Susanna says, you told in the last stream that a comic artist who works for a company and all his characters will be owned by that company. Is it always that way? No. Alan Davis, this artist, he created a family of characters called the Clandestine. And with Marvel, he is a long-time British writer and artist who has worked for Marvel for a great deal of years, as well as DC. But he set up an arrangement with Marvel that he's going to publish his Clandestiny book. He'll fit it into Marvel continuity by incorporating some of their superheroes into Silver Surfer and Spider-Man show up in his various stories. But Marvel doesn't get to do whatever they want with him. Alan Davis and Marvel have an arrangement that they can, every now and then he can come back and do another short series of books with these characters in the contextual Marvel universe. And he gets, a lot of the rights and he receives a lot of the proceeds that are generated by the sale of those books. And he owns the Clandestiny. He doesn't own Spider-Man, doesn't own Silver Surfer, the other characters. Those are all Marvel's. That is a rare and special circumstance. If you're drawing Fantastic Four and you create a bunch of new characters in a book, not the case here, he's doing reinterpretations of a lot of characters, but if you create a bunch of characters in a book, those characters belong to Marvel. They just do. Now, you can get recognition for it, but you're not getting paid for creating Midnight Fart or whatever your character's name is. And very seldomly, for most artists, there's no return. But as soon as you start to develop a name and some level of a negotiation ability with the larger companies, then yeah, you can set up stuff where if I introduce these books, I create these characters. There's some expectation in return, but it doesn't happen all the time. Independent books. Alan Moore and Eddie Campbell did From Hell, which is about the Jack the Ripper, and they turned it into a film, and they had a massive film preview, and they flew Eddie Campbell up from Australia to London to be at the film preview for it. And he's received a check 4 years for working on From Hell with Alan Moore. Very successful book. The proceeds of that book are still split between those guys and the company that they created it for, because it was a special arrangement. What's funny about this whole scenario is Eddie Campbell lives in Australia, and they have very strict censorship on materials coming into the country. No one has a copy of From Hell in Australia. I mean, maybe people have got a copy in, but From Hell, you're not allowed to bring that in Australia because it has the HE double hockey stick word on it. So Eddie Campbell is this very famous comic illustrator in the Commonwealth, Canada here, and I'm sure in the States as well, because From Hell's massive. It was a film starring that young lad Johnny Depp, but massive in Britain, and nobody can see what he does in Australia. That's a funny story. But with a story like Image Comics, or with a company like Image Comics, when you're a creative team doing a book for a company like Image is a company where they get percentage of the funds of published goods. You pay X amount of dollars in conjunction with the company paying X amount of dollars for the publication of said materials, and the successes is divided amongst you. The ownership of them stays with the creators. But that's a special circumstance. That's a special company that does that. And a lot of companies just don't. They just don't. It's specifically DC and Marvel. 2000 AD, if you're working on Judge Dredd, doesn't matter what you're creating and adding to the story, that's owned by 2000 AD. Here's another approach to story. This is Andrea Sorrentino, and this is a book called Gideon Falls, which is a horror book. So he draws in and inks it himself. And so here I'm going to pull in on this because you might want to take a look at this really interesting line. Now, there's not a friscollated image here. These small hash marks, like this, that's how he inks. Everything has this texture to it because that's how he does it. So to see it without the color, without any disruption of the color or text like that, that's one of the compelling things about finding copies of director cut books. Now you can see the overlay of the yellow text differentiated from the art itself so it doesn't disrupt it. Lovely. And Jeff Lemire is from around Windsor area here in Ontario, Canada. He's a wonderful writer. I'm just not a fan of his art. Not a popular opinion, by the way. A lot of people like his art. I don't. Look at that sky. I know. I can't do it enough justice. But take a look at Andrea Sorrentino. Look at that hash, scratchy business in the sky itself. Just put a dark value down and then scratched it out. That's cool. And you see this really rough penciled version underneath it as a response, as a mirror. He just does it in the roughest fashion so it looks like an artificial image. If you work on Spider-Man, you get paid for working on Spider-Man, but you don't own any of the rights to your story. That's owned by Marvel. There's the script by Lemire. So, in addition to that, I'll pick up stories like this, or I'll pick up books like this that has breakdowns of all the things that are going on for all these. I'm going to get out of the zoom zone there, folks. Sorry for that. This is an overview of all what's happening in all the X books at Marvel at the time. And so they'll do interviews and talk about the story direction for a number of titles, and they'll give you behind the scene looks at pencils and a little bit of development work on the various titles. Trying to see if there's one that, is that? No, it's not the same. Oh, there we go. There we are. See, there's the penciled version right here. And there it is colored. And the same article. So you get fun and fantastic insights like this. And so these are always fun too. And then there used to be a lot of these, but there really aren't anymore. This is an old comics interview. Uh-oh. Anyways, so this is about Frank Frazetta. This is why I picked this up, is that this whole thing is interviewing the life and career of Mr. Francis Frazetta. And I treasure this book. This is a good one. You know, in the truck. Want to see it? It's in the truck. Want to see it? Sure, but I still don't get this angle. Are you telling me to scream? Yeah, just wonderful. All kinds of articles of his process and his over the years. The third, so this is again one of these overview articles about all the different books, little behind the scenes cuts of all of it. But then these come out. These are really cheap, couple of pages, but it's a sketchbook. Now, Stuart Immonen is one of my favorite artists. He did this series of Fear Itself. And Chris will like this shot. Hold on. I'll zoom in on this one. There's a whole lineup of the X-Men. Or I'm sorry, the Avengers at the time. And in this story, Asgard is floating above the earth here because of whatever developments in the story. And so here is rough examples of how, you know, Stuart's work. And oh no, that's the Book of the Skull. That's not Stuart's stuff. This is, though, and it just shows you his intention with his line and how I've shown this before in the stream, embossing lines, a really strong, solid outline on images. There's you know, from the original work to some inked stuff, you can see the choices that are made by the inker to do solid blacks where there's hash work in the original pencils. Some of the character development, you know, oh, there we are. There's a big old scene. Chris K, I love this. It's of the Avengers. I'm in it. Anyways, so here's one more piece of fun. So in addition to these types of things, now over the years, these have come out, and that is various creators, and I've shown you this guy before recently, John Byrne. Now there's a British artist named John Byrne. This John Byrne is also British. He lived very briefly here in London, Ontario, called it the most boring place on earth, and moved. But this is the comics John Byrne. The other one is a British painter. Both of them quite good in their own respective fields, and legendary in their own respective fields. So this is John Byrne's How to Draw Comics comic. And so he talks about basic tools. You know, he talks about, you know, some of the fundamentals, right? The figure, you know, heroic proportions to realistic proportions, and the differences in their figures. You know, he talks about how muscles work. We need to be considerate of that, or how a figure should always begin with, you know, the stick figure, just so you can enables you to see the form and the action. So he's talking about his process here, and how he goes about starting with basics, right up to a finished line figure. And it's this is a lot of fun, this book. There's a number of these that came out over there's How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way. See here he is talking about thumbnails, talking about action, course of action. Now you can draw this where you see him flying in the panel. You can draw this where you see him flying out of the panel. But ideally you want to draw this so people understand he's flying across the panel. Problem with this, though, is now it looks like he's resting on the background because of where his stomach is. So he talks about all of those different processes in the creating of a comic. How to figure out your perspective for drawings. Lots of different stuff. So this was a great one. It's a risk for a company. It's a risk for a company to make a contract with someone and create a story of characters they might not be a success, but it's bad for the author not to be able to create new stuff and be paid for the work. There's all kinds of avenues for creators to find more recidivism in the process of work that they do. There's all kinds of different possibilities. But if you're drawing Spider-Man for Marvel Comics, you'll get paid a percentage of sales, and you'll get paid the base amounts of money for your page rate and things like that. But and if it's a really good book, you're very talented. It's a really good book, good story, good art. Like that Fear Itself book sold massively, multiple covers, massive sales. So the artist and the writer that received healthy amounts of money, but every person that comes into the industry can't. A company needs to hold on to its intellectual properties. It just does. Otherwise, other companies can steal their characters. And in the 1950s, 60s, there was all kinds of lawsuits going on between companies. Captain Marvel in England was based on Shazam, and his name was Marvel Man. So Shazam's the C.C. Beck. C.C. Beck was working at a company that created Shazam Comics. They were sued by DC because Shazam's too much like Superman. Marvel Man bases its character roughly on Shazam. Now they want a lawsuit with them for stealing intellectual property, and then Marvel wants to sue them because they are using the name Marvel, and it's not involved. It's not for them. So there's this contentiousness that goes across everybody for who can control what. If anybody under the sun could just draw mainstream books and publish it themselves and capitalize on, there's my Superman, here's my Spider-Man, and it's exactly Superman or exactly Spider-Man, as if they were doing the thing for the main company, that company would lose money, and that company would be very upset. And if there's anything in this world that we know, it's that the corporate machines, they want their money. Here's another how to draw book that was put out by a magazine called Wizard, and it shows you a lot of basics, roughs, right, movement, goes into how the figure works, how the expressions work. It's Kevin McGuire, absolute master of visual expressions on faces. It's you can produce your own books, you can create your own characters. Those are yours, those are your intellectual properties, and you can maintain and own that license. Now, if somebody buys, okay, so let's say somebody buys the new book, all right? And so somebody takes this character right here, and they start doing their own book where it's all stories about this character getting kicked in the head or whatever. Now, ideally, they don't do that because, these are representations of me working in the studio, and I don't want to get kicked in the head. But for somebody to take this character that's already on a published property and to produce their own works from it and to call them their own and to get the money without any sort of reciprocity for the fact that I created this random character, they're breaking copyright law. Now, there's some really crazy things about copyright and international laws, and copyright as opposed to Canadian law, and copyright as opposed to American law, which is also, honestly, from where my viewpoint is, an international law. That there's different rights and different allowances, and they're highly dependent on the contractual basis of what is established between publisher and creator. And so it's negotiating the best of those terms that you can. Mark Millar has created a good 20 titles last 10 years. Trade paperbacks, big thick books like this one, with all kinds of characters and with all kinds of artists. Each of those artists are paid X amount of dollars. Many of them have arrangements to receive monies off sales and processes of the copies of the books, single issues, trade paperbacks, hardcovers, so on and so forth. He sold the entire company to Netflix. Netflix wanted to see if there was money in comics and be able to adapt all of Mark Millar's properties made in these books with all of these creators, and to adapt all of them as TV shows and things like that. So when they buy Millar World and they pay for the use of all these licenses, not just Mark, but all of the artists that he had arrangements with receive monies from Netflix to do that. So in that case, an independent, and he published everything under the auspices of Image, and he's moved everything over from Image to Dark Horse now. So he'll be he'll be reprinting all of the material that he's done so far as Dark Horse books now. So, you know, round 2 of making money of a thing that's already done. You know, good for them. But it's still his. He still owns it. He just has a contractual arrangement with Dark Horse. And they've done that a number of times. And a lot of people don't realize what books that Dark Horse has done. The Max was a Dark Horse character. And John Arcudi created the Max. I'm sorry, the Mask. They made Jim Carrey movies out of that. And he received a healthy bit of money, as did Dark Horse, because they published the book. So I could talk about different examples for hours, but companies go into receivership. You know, there was a lot of companies created in the 1990s, and a lot of them folded. And of those companies that folded like that, other people have bought them and tried to bring them back. Valiant was a comic from the 1950s, from Gold Key Comics, and then Valiant came out and they bought the license to use all these old Gold Key characters like Magnus Robot Hunter, or Robot Fighter. I'm sorry, Magnus Robot Fighter, and Turok, you know, Dinosaur Hunter. Just fun books. Solar, Man of the Atom, very 1950s titles, right? Well, they relaunched the company under, Jim Shooter, and they made a lot of money, and it lasted X amount of time, and then ran out of steam. Somebody else buys it and kicks it back up again 5-10 years later, tries to relaunch everything, tell more stories, and they went for a while, and then they ran out of steam. So it's possible for other people to do same things with the companies, but they got to buy all those licenses. They got to buy the options to use all those things. So Suzanne says, so one needs to be creative and have negotiating skills. I can't stress this enough. If you're a creative person, it doesn't work to just like I'm an engine. I'm a creative engine that just spits out stuff, thing after thing after thing. But you can't just be that, right? Unfortunately, with your creativity and your output, you have to still be able to represent to some extent an understanding of this is my work, this is how I'm doing this in this regard. And in order to maintain the integrity of the things that you've done, that they can't just be pilfered by whoever. Challenges are that somebody else can pilfer whatever it is that you've done with enough of a modification to it that it's not yours anymore. And they're going to capitalize on that as well. Parody, homage, and they could put out materials like that. But you have got to have some ability to represent yourself, and eventually you can, if you have something that's worthwhile, and you can get representation by an agent, and that agent will look out for the best interests of your work, because they, recidivistically, they get paid money from the good things that are happening with your productivity as the representative for you of making contracts happen for that creativity. But you need to have some basic sense of, this is the thing that I'm doing, and this is my, my possessive ownership of it, right? It's tricky, but it's absolutely necessary. So, a couple more things. I'll just show you a few more. This is the House of N sketchbook. This is Olivia Copiel, and Wonderful stuff. Just a lovely, look at the heavy pencil work that he does, as opposed to the fine pencil work that others do. But really great stuff. He did a big crossover where the alternate universe where the mutants are in charge of everything. But there's Avengers and X-Men lined up there. This is another one of the, and so these are just sketchbooks. So this isn't a director's cut. There's no scripts here. But it's behind the scenes art. Now, Alex Ross designed the series Earth X, Paradise, or Universe X, Paradise X, in these 3 different collected series. And he also did Kingdom Come for DC Comics as well. Marvel's is the 3rd thing that he did, and he did that, of course, with Marvel's. And it was a look at the origin, doing painted books about the origin of Marvel Comics in the 1960s. And then Earth X was them in the future, and the challenges that happened, in the universe of this contextual narrative, the Marvel Comics Company. Kingdom Come was the same thing for DC. So this is Alex Ross sketches of him designing his interpretation of all the characters of Marvel Comics for the series, right? Like there's so many characters, like Old Man. See how Wolverine's old and has gray hair, and Machine Man is a translucent dermis around the basic machine parts that he's made of. There's Spider Girl, that's Peter Parker's daughter. This is the Hulk is split into 2 forms, and it's Bruce Banner is like permanently 11-year-old child, and he rides on top of this massive green ape-like Hulk in this series. So there's all kinds of crazy and interesting new interpretations. At one point, a bunch of the Avengers got turned into angels. And the interesting part of that is Daredevil, Matt Murdock, he's the devil. He turns into their version of Lucifer. He doesn't have wings like everybody else does. So this is a crazy, and there's Thor and Loki. It's a crazy universe. It's absolutely brilliant. There's absolutely beautiful work. And the entire series was drawn by Doug Braithwaite. I'm trying to think. Doug Braithwaite, J.P. Leone did all kinds of design work for this. But it's just wonderful stuff. So there's, you can find all kinds of things. Here's another Alex Ross one where he's doing a reinterpretation of the original Invaders from the 1940s World War II era versus the contemporary Avengers at the time, and so he's doing redesigns on all of those characters. Old school neighbor, new school neighbor, Namor, old villains, a Red Skull, crazy creepy. Just neat work. 1940s superheroes. And then some of the page design, but he didn't do the interior. He did all the character designs and the covers. The interior is drawn by a different artist. So that's the joy of this. That's the fun in the sun of what you can see and what you can discover in some of these. Here is, I don't know if you've seen this, I'm going to show you 2 of the greatest comics ever made. One is Long Shot Comics. And for those of you that are always devaluing your, I can't do comics, I can't draw. Well, Long Shot Comics, and it's really beat up because I've owned this for a long time and I love this thing and I don't know where to find it. Sig went out of business in the mid-90s, early 90s. This is from 95. Who knows, this might have been one of the books that put them out of business. This Long Shot Comics, The Long and Unlearned Life of Roland Gathers, featuring life, death, adventure, romance, intrigue, well, maybe not so much intrigue, conflict, resolution, more conflict, 3 wars, and a cast of thousands. Spanning 89 years in the British Empire, starring, now here it comes, I'll hold this up, dots. Everybody's dots. Bang! So, this crazy page, and I could zoom it until the heart's content, but the reality is that they're dots. But this multi-paneled page of dialogue that you need to wear your good glasses in order to be able to read It's 89 years of story, and all the characters are drawn as dots. You got to see the battles. It's like 6 dots in a panel. But there's little story cards like, the wedding was back on, the wedding was off. The wedding was back on, the wedding was modest. Anyhow, I love this book. It's absolutely, look at this story takes place at night. This part of the story. It's absolutely, it's down the mine. I'm sorry, this is in the mine, this conversation. It's an absolutely brilliant, brilliant story. It really is. It's just, the visuals are dots. There's a battle. Let me show you how epic this is in scope. Look at all the dots in the bottom of that panel. Yeah, so anyhow, this is absolutely wonderful stuff. The end. Yeah. So that's one. And here's another. This generic comic book. This is put out by Marvel. Type, superhero action adventure. This comic contains one neurotic superhero type with a variety of personnel problems, one bad guy bent on world domination through arcane means, sort of various henchmen, etc., etc. And then it does this really generic superhero story where, you know, all of the dialogue is your standard superhero tropes. This book is nothing but tropes. The entire book. It's all of your standard cliches of a superhero story. And the fight scene, of the bad guy sneaking up on him in the dark, it's fantastic. It's a ridiculous story. Why the soliloquy happens, the whole deal. Anyways, ridiculous book. I've had this for a long time too, but it's bizarre. It's one of those things where you can't believe a company made something. Let me see. More sketchbooks. So the pile, I'm not gonna go through the whole thing. I mean, I can show a few of these each day, but this is the rest of them. I could be showing you. Yeah. So, yeah, there's a bunch. There's a whole bunch. But it's a lot to go through, and but there's a lot of interesting stuff. So if you can find books like this, and if you're interested in the behind-the-scenes process and how possibly you could improve on your page layouts and things like that, and look at how a script works in accordance to the finished result of the pencils and the finished result of the inks and coloring and everything. Great. Here's another Alex Ross one where he's doing character designs. You know, there's a bit of Alan Moore talking about the story process. It's very verbose, and some pencil work by Steve Scroce. Steve Scroce is one of the artists that designed The Matrix, by the way. So here he is on the Superbook he was working on at the time. Yeah, so lots of stuff. Lots of these things to look at, and lots of these things to be inspired by and to develop. I highly recommend you, for most people, listen, work on your stories. Do your stories, and do your best to tell the stories as best as you're able to, whether visually or textually. If you're not a strong artist, get a strong artist or become a stronger artist. Allow yourself to recognize your capabilities, challenge yourself, work within them, work with others that if it's a beneficial relationship. Don't just hire people willy-nilly. Learn all of those things before you start collaborating with others. Make arrangements with others, negotiate arrangements with others, and make finalized contracts. Learn about contracts. If you're going to invest in becoming a comic book company person, learn all of those things. And if you don't, then be prepared for potential challenges in the future. But, that said, write and draw stories. don't let any of that stuff dissuade you. Don't let any of that jazz interfere on any level with your creativity. Get out there and create. Get out there and tell your stories. Get out there and do the work that interests you, and pursue the agenda that you've always had for wanting to express yourself in whatever way. And if it happens to be within comics, then so be it. But pursue that. Allow yourself that. But if you're going to release it, and if you're going to work with another company like Image or some other publisher, make sure you have a clear arrangement with them. Just make sure. RP Comics, we've put out 75 publications. The new book that I've just done is it's the 75th thing that RP has published. And some of those things have been published by independent creators under the RP mantle. We've had that happen 3 times now. But the rest of them all went, I published them all. But the arrangement that we've always had is I don't charge anybody anything or expect any rights to anything. I would always make sure I went out of the way. Here's another fun part. Learn about this. Learn about publishing indicia on books if you're going to publish books. Make sure you have that, because that protects you from people ripping you off. More than anything else, that does. Get an ISBN number so it's a registered book. It's yours. But we would always have in the publishing indicia I just showed you, all characters, places, scenarios are copyright to the individual creators. I don't want anybody's copyrights. I don't want to have to manage any of that junk. But I want them to all have possession of that. And we would give copies to them. Go promote yourself. Take this book. Say, hey, look, I got published. And go find work with these other companies. But learn about those contracts if you're working with companies. I knew somebody who had illustrated a number of pages for a company before they'd ever paid him. Before they'd ever published one of those issues, completed issues that he'd produced. And then when they did publish one of those completed issues that he produced, they didn't publish it in the capacity that the initial agreement was for. They published as a free comic day book. And his recidivism for percentage rights was based on sale per units at full price. So all these free comic days that were produced, all these free comic days books that were produced and released, he didn't receive monies for. And then they released his book after that. And so nobody ordered volumes of his book because everybody had the same book from free comic day. So, figure those things out. Great guy, by the way. It just, that wasn't a nice thing for a company to do. I'm being generous. Yeah. So, the book. I've got the book. We've got Maitre D' of McDonald's. We've done that. There's certain suggestions that come in, and I don't rush into those because I don't want to necessarily want to tell those stories at that time. But I've been going back and trying to knock off a bunch of the early ones and doing what we can to make sure we've got examples of all the different people that have made suggestions for us. But there's some that I'm still catching up on, and I appreciate the people that have made suggestions and are waiting for those to be done for your patience. So Mr. Magoo goes for his license. We can do something like that. I like this idea from Miriam, and the tears rolled on her cheeks. Dee Dee suggests me as a hula dancer. I don't know about that one. Logan and Bert, where's Ernie? Okay, let's just do that. Logan and Bert, where's Ernie? So, yeah. Now we can do a couple different things. We can do, I think I'm going to use Bert and Ernie. I think I'm actually going to do the Bert and Ernie, but I'm going to do my versions of them. I'm not drawing them as puppets. I'm going to draw them as people, which is a little more challenging because I have to figure out what do they look like as puppets, and then I have to make them be people, but I still want some kind of exaggeration with them so that you get the sense of that puppet representing that, or that character representing, I'm sorry, that puppet character. So I've grabbed a piece of paper here. So one of the things that you can do before working on the actual drawing is to sit down with another piece of paper and maybe sometimes work out the characters that are going to be on there. So then I hope I didn't overwhelm you with all that information. And I hope I didn't scare you with all of that information. It's important that you, when you release your thing, just make sure you have the publishing and DC on it. If you have questions about what that is and how to do it, message me. And I will walk you through it. And that goes for anybody that's watching the stream here. If there are ever questions about things like rights ownership and publishing, publishing in DC, ISBN numbers, working with publishers or how to self-publish, and there's a whole wackadoo of business about that. But if there's a way I can help, just let me know. The title for today was Channel Growth Mixed Media Comic Stories and Improvement. And I'm going to end up changing that title so that, we talk about publishing questions and instead of the mixed media comic, because I'm going to just draw with, well, that's not true. I'm going to do mixed media stuff in this paper, but it's all going to be white tools on a red surface. But before we get into that, let's do these characters. But if there's ways that I can help folks. Now, I wrote a note about channel growth. The growth of the YouTube channel has somebody pointed out to me yesterday that it's stagnated. There's no growth again happening. I know, and I'm okay with that. This is just who I am and what I do. I'm not going to run around and be fake, and hi, if you give me so many viewers, I'll blah 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 blah. I'm just me, and I hope you're having fun, and I hope we're learning things together. But yeah, I'm really comfortable with whatever number I'm at the moment, because for me it's far more interesting and far more encouraging to hang out with you and to talk with you and to spread whatever things that I've learned over time and to pass those on. So as I appreciate people, tracking however many followers I might have and why isn't that changing or whatever, it ebbs and flows. And I'm just more interested in just doing this thing. And if more people come on, I absolutely love and treasure that. But I'm more appreciative of the fact that the people that come and regularly engage in the stream or just watch the streams, or not that everyone has to be in the chat. I'm just, however I can help folks out, and however much I can encourage others to find this expressive form of communication in themselves using sequential means to tell stories. Great. I'm more concerned about the people that I'm engaging with, whether they're just watching a video or if they're engaged in the process of it, than I am about having 1.2 million people. So I appreciate people's interest, though. And at the same time, somebody asked how the book's doing. The book's doing fine. The book's doing great. Putting the book out and being able to provide copies of the book and to follow through and say, here's the result, here's the process of it, and those things. That sort of capitulation is wonderful to me. But I'm not sitting in my studio rocking back and forth going, oh, I gotta sell more. I gotta promote that. It's gotta be the best book. A book's gonna do what a book's gonna do, and so Susanna says, in some situations, it's better quality than quantity. Believe it. I completely believe that. I appreciate you saying that. The earliest books that I did, I'm going to be honest, they're terrible. They're absolutely, my capacity for drawing, my capacity for storytelling, and for becoming more and more developed and sophisticated in those over time is because of the process that I went through to get here. I'm not saying it's perfect, and I'm not saying there aren't other people that have better facility than I am, but what I am saying is that to get to the point that I'm at now, I've done some kind of lame ducks. Just have. But here we are. We're doing all right. Okay, so Bert and Ernie. Now Bert has his head shape is actually an ovoid, but we're gonna cap the top of his leg because nobody has that much of a cone head, except for the cone head family. Blah blah. So, and the wide puppet mouth that the character has, we'll just do a somewhat exaggerated but very kind of cartoony mouth, and so we'll give him a bit of a nose, and put his eyes in, but the shape of the head is going to be very, it's just a little less puppety. That's all I'm going for. Give him a bit of a unibrow. Yeah, I appreciate everybody listening to my crazy business, but I will never stop advocating for other people to write and draw stories and find their voice. I'll never stop doing that because nobody's more valid than the next person, right? Well, I was going to tell this story, but somebody else told the exact story I was thinking about. Then just rework it. Just do your own thing. It's your story, whether it has the exact same principles as the next person beside you. The result is not going to be the same. There is so much secret sauce inside you that you're going to introduce into that story that is going to remove it from the way that the person beside you is producing the same thing. Just don't do Superman. Don't do don't rip off characters from the large companies that have the facility of economics to sue you out of existence. So just figure out the loopholes around that of parody and satire. So here is our Bert character, and just silly business. I'm making him a little cartoony, but I'm giving him this tall and long neck. Now, Ernie is the same, but people don't have an oval shape on its side for a head. They just don't. Not. Yes, some people in the world do, because every ridiculous head shape you can think of, somebody's probably got it going on. But we're gonna shake him up just a little bit, make him a little more human. Big old nose. So here's our Bert. Here's our Ernie character. A couple kids. A couple young bachelors out in the world. Now I know there's a lot of theories that, actually there are a couple. I don't care. Whether they are or not. I remember when I was a kid, they would always point out, hey, just a couple of bachelors having fun, Ernie. So there's the two of them, in height and the differences therein. So just roughing an idea of the guys, right? Bearing in mind, I'm going to try and draw them a little more realistic than that. I need a drink. I've been yabbering at you for a while. Okay. Alright, so we'll start with Bert. Now, rather than drawing with the black pencil, I'm going to come in and draw this with the white. And so I'm going to go to our zoom camera so you can see it a little more clearly. All right, now I get my big goofy head out of the way. Nobody needs to see me. So, I'm going to tilt this back a little bit. Tilt it, tilt it, move around, and yeah. Okay. Ow, I'm so sorry. All right, so here's our first guy. These two guys got some big noses. Sorry, move that down. So we'll put a little bit of a more grounded and realistic view. And Suzanne says, I like silly and goofy characters. Yep, I agree. You can have some really fun situations from guys where the one guy has got a absurdist viewpoint on the world. Hence my love of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Hey, cool it, Earthman. So I'm drawing Bert, and we've already worked out that head shape, remember? But when I'm doing the drawing part of it, a little more realism to the image than the rough cartoon. I gotta, so here's the thing, a lot of people use the term cartoonist for drawing sequential stuff. Cartoonists were very specific. It was a very specific task, a very specific person was a cartoonist. And that was somebody who did newspaper periodicals, children's books, things like that. But not everybody's a cartoonist, and so all these people that you're a cartoonist. If they find out you write and illustrate stories, you're like, no, I don't do works in newspaper and the like. But yet a lot of people use that term. They bandy it around. Oh, it's interchangeable now. A word is a word. Rewriting all the rules on everything. Like a geek. I hate that term so much. Etymology is important, people. Geek was a circus performer that, knocked the heads off of chickens and is a yapper. I'm trying to say that without getting in trouble. So if you post somebody say, I'm a geek, I'm like, you have no idea what you're talking about. I hope not. I'm not inviting you over for dinner anyways. I'm such a geek. Ugh, don't admit to that. So we're putting our Bert character in. Yeah, I've got him on a really goofy angle in the panel, in case you're wondering. There it is. So we're gonna bit of a unibrow going there. He's got some hair. I like the idea of these two being punk rock. Hence the mohawk. If anybody has any questions or anything, by all means, feel free. The worst that could happen with your questions is that I'd curl up in a ball and start crying. Or, no, I mean, I don't know a response to. But it's worth trying. It's worth asking. So here's our Ernie going in. Kind of looks like one of the young ones. British cartoon series. Oh, I'm sorry, British comedy series. So here's our first character coming in. There's our Ernie. Oh no, this is Bert. using the white as both a positive and a negative element in the composition right now by whiting out the background with a thin little black line around the head of the character in the foreground. It tends to help separate him from the background. And then we can put some little emphasis points in here as well, just to sort of sell it home. But there's our Ernie. Next I'll draw the Bert. Oh, I'm sorry, there's our Bert. Next I'll draw the Ernie is what I meant. That helps, folks. So we started with our silly little cartoonish look at Bert, and then gave him a little more dimension and form, and we've turned him into a more representative drawing of an actual guy that might look like him. Crazy hair. Is there any left? So tomorrow's stream I'll be doing first thing in the morning, just because I've got a busy day tomorrow, a bunch of things to run around and do. I can't be on as long as I might hope today, because I've still got a couple things I need to get done, commission wise. I was going to put some time in on those, but just want to get this started anyhow, so you can see where it's going to go with these different types of characters. Now I'm not going to rough in the whole page. I tend to work from one spot in the page and just fill the whole thing up. So okay, so here's our Bert character, and the reason I drew him on this sort of crazy angle is that I'm going to have him leaning his head as he's looking around, to his roommate who's doing something silly. So that's why the random angle that I've drawn there. There we are. So hopefully this gives folks an insight. And, taking a cartoon of a puppet and working that up and then reinterpreting it in a more finished way. It doesn't mean you can't stick with this level, or this, not level, but this approach. This works too. I just want to do this with it. Yeah, so here's Bert, and then we're going to get into whoever Logan and Ernie are. I believe the suggestions for Wolverine and Bert and Ernie. It's a weird crossover, but I like it. Okay, so there is our Bert. Now, I've been using that Faber-Castell, but I've also got this Prismacolor white here, and it shows up so much more. I kind of like that. We can use that for different things, like building up the surfaces on the face. Okay, so here's where I'm at. Today's suggestion is Logan and Ernie Where's Bert? And I got that from one of the people that I met at the London Comic Con here, so that's fun. Just finishing the last so many of those off now. If people have suggestions, ideas, sentences, piece of conversation, 3-word prompts, whatever it is, feel free to put it in the comments for this video. Feel free to put it in the comments on my posts on Instagram, Facebook, and of course Patreon. And let me know, and we'll do what we can to do one of those. All right, I'm going to sign off for now. I will be back tonight later on, and but definitely I will be here tomorrow morning for 9 or 10 o'clock. Okay, so I hope to see you then, and in the meantime, I hope you have a great day. Thanks for coming and hanging out. I'll have this page posted in the morning. Bye for now.